Hi, I'm Erin from The Witch of Saturn here with Jamie Sawyer, creatrix extraordinaire, coming at you today with another video about the tarot through the houses casting sticker, right?
Yes, yes.
So we thought we were kind of going back and forth about the best way to keep working with the sticker,
Mhm.
which I think we could look at it through the houses, obviously, because this is how it's meant to be used, is like understanding the cards through your particular houses. But if we do that, like if we start talking today about the first house, let's say, then everybody's going to have a different sign in that house and different decans. So instead, we decided to talk about the particular signs. So now that we're
Mhm.
in Scorpio season, today we're going to go over Scorpio, those three decans of Scorpio that in tarot correlate to five, six, and seven of cups, and where that falls in your particular chart. So, like for Jamie, she's a Scorpio rising. Scorpio is her first house.
Mhm.
For me, Scorpio is in my 11th house. So, we'll talk a little bit about how the particular sign will show up differently in each person's chart depending on which house it's in. Sound good?
I love it.
So here is Jamie's chart in the casting sticker. I'm going
Mhm.
to zoom in on this a little bit so that we can see close up what's happening here.
Mhm.
So, the first thing that I think is important for us to talk about is the energy and essence of Scorpio to begin with. And I was thinking this morning as I was driving my daughter to preschool that this is like the quintessential Scorpio day today that we're filming this here in our region, Bucks County in the Northeast.
It's rainy, it's gloomy, it's like just
Yeah.
not
It's
cold but not warm.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
raining, damp, dark,
Yep.
gloomy. It's a peak fall where we
Yeah.
see all of like the leaves dying, and it's just like we're in Scorpio season now, and you can really feel it. And so the way that I learned astrology and continue to think about astrology constantly is through the seasons in the Northeast, where here we have Scorpio is the peak of autumn. It's the peak of fall. Libra ushers in the autumn season with the equinox. And then Scorpio as a fixed sign. All of the fixed signs are the peak of the season. So Scorpio is fall, it is what it is. Taurus is spring, right?
Mhm.
Aquarius is the deep of winter. So we can see that each season, like Leo in the summer, is
Mhm.
it's a good way to understand what a fixed sign means. It's not changing, right? It's like we
Yeah.
have the cardinal sign brings in the season, and then the season is what it is in the fixed modality, and then the mutable sign comes in to transition out and end that season. So with Scorpio being fixed water, we have a real deep emotional realm of existence in Scorpio. Some of the different ways that I've heard Scorpio described, or that I like to think about it, is one is the tsunami, right? Like a wall of fixed water. Like if you think about, or I've also heard it described as like a faucet just on
Mhm.
full blast, or think about it like a hose. Have you ever been squirted with a hose where it's like a steady stream?
Yeah.
And
When you put like your thumb over it and it just,
it
yeah,
hurts,
it
right?
hurts.
Like it
Yeah.
just, water being filtered in that capacity and intensity stings. And I think that
Mhm.
that's a really good representation of Scorpio with the scorpion with the stinger. We know like y'all
Yeah.
can y'all can sting.
We don't mean to, it just happens.
So some of the other ways you could think about it, besides that like wall of water, like a tsunami, I've also heard it described as a swamp with this
Mm.
stagnant water, this like depth of water that's murky and you don't really know what's in it. And that in of
Which is
itself.
so dangerous.
So dangerous, right?
Hitting
Like,
water is so much more dangerous than a freaking like than a I mean, okay, it's not more dangerous than like a hurricane or a tsunami or anything like that, but like just what lies beneath.
yeah, or like
Yeah.
bacteria. Like it's
Right.
very,
Like don't go down a hard like Google search on what happens to people from stagnant water, but there are
it's
some terrible tales.
yes, it's awful. So we again get that. And I'm not saying that Scorpio is just all bad. It's not.
No.
But there is a depth to it and there is a dangerous side to Scorpio. It's a Mars ruled sign traditionally. The traditional ruler of Scorpio is Mars, which is the planet of war and aggression. It's also the planet of motivation and drive and action and energy. But Mars has the ability to cut and to sever. That's what it's really good at. It really enjoys. It's kind of like that could be a good thing, like a surgeon, but it can also be
Mhm.
something that, you know, that really comes in and cuts a cord. And
Mhm.
Scorpio is deeply, deeply loyal and connected as a water sign on an emotional level. But like if a Scorpio cuts a cord with you, that's it. It's done. It's never coming back. It's all or nothing. It's a very polarizing black and white type of mentality in Scorpio. And that also is evident through the modern ruler of Scorpio, which is Pluto, right?
Mhm.
These kind of extremes that we have. But back to the symbolism of Scorpio, we could also think about it. One of the ways that Scorpio strikes me is like an underwater or like a water in a underground cave,
Mhm.
right? Like water that's
Right.
deep under the ground where you kind of have to go and excavate to find it.
Mhm.
That's something that always kind of jumps to mind when I think of Scorpio. Is there anything that you think of with Scorpio, like in nature, Jamie?
Um, I mean, I feel like the one thing obviously that jumps out to me is just kind of like the whole fact that it's scorpions or desert animals. Like my brain has a hard time with that. Like
Hmm, that's interesting. Yeah.
why is it fixed water? So like recently I was drawing the Scorpio season casting sticker and I was like, I'm gonna throw this scorpion in a wall of water and it's a desert creature, you know? So that to me it's going like I guess there's a resilience factor there in the lore of it. And I'm sure like we can go into the depths of why it's a scorpion instead of, you know, just but a crawfish or something. But it's going the resilience of it to be able to be this symbolism of like this vast water sign and but it's more of a desert creature that the stingers on scorpions in themselves is really funny because the smaller the claws the more dangerous they are, so it's almost like don't mistake the threat isn't everything isn't what they seem. You know, you can might be like, oh, those have huge pinchers, that thing's gonna, you know, be venomous. It's like, no, those are actually the ones you can handle. That's why in like movies they show the scorpions with the bigger claws because they're less of a threat to people on the set. But then, you know, I just think about like that in the name like the nature of like what the animal act or the creature actually is and why it's like a fixed water sign cracks me up because I'm like, this is a desert creature. This is a bug.
So the whole time you were talking about that, it's like triggering something in my mind, and I need like a second to locate it because I know that I have
Like
studied.
you would know why.
I know,
Yeah.
but I don't. It's not coming to the forefront of my
Uh-huh.
mind. I know that I have
Uh-huh.
heard someone talk about that, and it was like, oh, that makes perfect sense to me.
Right,
Um,
right.
which I think, okay, here it is. I think it's this. I think it's that what scorpions have the ability because they are in this desert, dry climate,
Hmm.
which does resonate with Mars when we think
Right,
about anything Martian,
right.
it's hot
Hmm.
and drying, right? So I think right there, that kind of ties into the significations of the ruling planet. But
Hmm.
I think it's the ability of scorpions to seek out water in their natural
Hmm.
environment and retain it in order to survive.
That makes sense. Complete sense. Yeah.
Okay, so I think
Hmm.
that that is where the tie-in comes in
Hmm.
with water in that arid environment. but
Hmm.
it's not something that I have like a, that's the best answer I have.
Right, which is fine, which is, you just asked, and I was like, well, for me, I'm just the literal
No,
representation of it.
it's a great, it's a really great point. Okay, well, here, I'm not sure if we're going to get the answer to your question, but I am going to
Hmm.
read through some of my notes. Um,
Hmm.
this is from a course that I took with Sarah Corbett
Hmm.
on astroherbalism. And she did a really great job of like the history of the signs, the constellations, everything like that. And so the Babylonians, it's a creature with the burning sting, and scorpions are everywhere in the Middle East, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So this is like the ancient origins of
Hmm.
this particular constellation and sign. It's divided into three main components versus other signs are not, which I've always loved and found fascinating about Scorpio. There's different representations of it. Like some are a lizard or dragon, then we
Hmm.
have the scorpion, and then we also have the phoenix or
Hmm.
the
Or the
eagle.
eagle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So in the stellar calendar, Scorpio represents the descent of the sun into the underworld darkness. Its
Hmm.
poisonous sting, which rises just before the winter solstice, symbolizes the death of the sun and the dissolution of the year. Scorpio has a
Hmm.
fixed quality of the sun being fully in the darkness of the underworld. Yeah, it says the scorpion, lizard, turtle, dragon in European Jewish art and people who had never seen a scorpion, right?
Hmm.
So we have
Hmm.
these different representations based on, like you're saying, the location of these creatures. Associations in nature are with wolves, every swimming thing, rivers,
Hmm.
trees in moderate height, and orchards. In the world, places of vineyards and mulberries, every stinking and horrid place. Prisons and places of grief and sorrow, destroyed houses, the hollows of scorpions, moist places, places
Hmm.
with still water that may be dark and closed off in some way, subterranean
Hmm.
caves with lakes.
That
So,
brings you back to your caves. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I loved that when she talked about it. I was like, yes, I've always thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So in ourselves, the associations are mystery, prophecy,
Hmm.
sorcery, privacy, decay processes, blacksmithing, volcanoes, war and violence, composting is such a good one
Hmm.
for Scorpio season. Um, Transmutation work, depth and how darkness facilitates depth of feeling, deep well of emotion. Like if Aries is the warrior, Scorpio is the assassin.
Hmm.
Emotional excavation, healing, especially with trauma, protection
Hmm.
over aggression, a need to feel safe to be in deep connection.
You know what I'm finding really interesting just about this like little side tangent segue deep dive is, like I said, I just created that Scorpio casting sticker. I haven't put it in the shop yet. I should probably do that. Um, but as I was creating it, I was like, okay, I think I sent you the sketch, but or I might have just sent you the finished thing. But I was like, is it too weird? And then as you're sitting here talking about it, you're like the wall of water because I did a huge tidal wave, and I was like, why did I do a tidal wave? And then after
Oh,
I like everything on like it just further shows me that some of these things that I create are so intuitively guided that I'm just merely the hand that draws them. Because the scorpion, I was like, okay, I want to put the pomegranate in there to kind of bring it into the underworld. So then I did it upside down. And the upside down of it, I have the Grim Reaper with the scythe that's coming in as like the cleanup after war, you know, like kind of like the assassin, but also like you never know when it's going to strike type of thing, but also to like bring us into those depths. And then I put Mars and Pluto in it. It's just like all the things you're saying. I'm like, that's kind of represented in the sticker, and I didn't even like I just knew I wanted key symbols.
well, as soon as you sent it to me and I saw that, I was like, oh, there's the tsunami.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, here it is.
Yeah.
I finally
Yeah.
got it. All right,
Okay.
all of that. Sorry, this is what it's like to be in my brain, where I'm like, I know the answer to this, and it's somewhere deep within all of this other stuff that's floating around. So, scorpions can survive underwater for a significant amount of time, sometimes up to 48 hours by holding its breath.
I love that. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that. That's the piece I was like thinking of.
Right.
It's like the ability to survive
It's
even.
like, oh, okay. I'll just, oh yeah, watch this. I'm gonna win this contest.
Yeah, it's a very fixed thing,
Mhm.
right? So I think that that kind of ties in some of those significations, right? And the energy of Scorpio, even though Scorpions
Mhm.
are just one facet and live in this
Yeah.
arid climate, the
Yeah.
energy of Scorpio, the sign,
Hmm.
is this like really deep
Hmm.
depth of the human psyche and our
Hmm.
being, and that those places within us that we all have the ability to go to that just Scorpio naturally thrives in, right?
Right. Right.
So
I love it.
yeah. So now that we've covered like a little bit about Scorpio and some of the things
Mhm.
that it also rules would be things that are taboo, dark
Mhm.
arts, secrets. Scorpio energy is very secretive and like deeply protective. Anything that has to do with like a very deep emotional connection is
Mhm.
very scorpionic. So Scorpio is also extremely intense and needs directionality, purpose, and has a hunger for things.
Mhm.
On a deeper level, there's a state of constant change, transformation, and circulation as we see the process of decay give way to new life. What we'll see when we look at the chart
Mhm.
is that Scorpio is connected to the death card, right? In
Mhm.
the Rider-Waite system, the death card is the sign of Scorpio. And we see a lot of those significations that we just talked about here, right here in this card, right? The process
Mhm.
of death and dying and deep emotional connection and this, even the fixed water in the background, right?
And I know some people have likened that to the river Styx as well. Like the river in the background is kind of like the ferry boat that's bringing you to meet your maker, you know.
The underworld.
Yeah, the underworld.
And that's what this time of year really
Mhm.
signifies, is that we see
Mhm.
that in nature, that all of the energy of the things that are living above the surface starts to go
Mhm.
down into the underworld. But it's interesting because it's not the end of the astrological cycle, even though we
Right.
have this, and it's also like death is only the 13th card
Right.
in the
Right.
majors. This is not the end. This is an
Yeah.
important moment of a process of dying, an
Mhm.
initiation, a deep shedding and letting
Mhm.
go, but it is nowhere near the end of the spiritual journey, right?
I think the first time I heard that in tarot teachings was like very freeing because you know people like in the movies will be like, "Ooh, the death card," and it's like, yeah, it's just I always say is only the beginning because now it's like this huge transformation period or transformative period. But the one thing that I have to remember, especially when I do like the public tarot castings and stuff, is death is also a painful transformation. It's not like one of the lesser transforming cards. Not that any of them are lesser or more, you know, but it's going to be changed through something that's probably going to be very uncomfortable. Because if you could do it yourself, then it would be like, oh, you know, it's kind of like an uncontrolled change.
Well, there's a separation, right? Like
Yeah.
when I had to figure out how to explain death to my girls who are only
Hmm.
7 and about to turn 4.
Hmm.
But you know, we were going through processes of our dog died and
Hmm.
then their grandfather died, and it was something that we had to, you know, discuss. And the
Hmm.
way that I explained it to them was that there comes a point where our spirit cannot no longer stay in our body, and we're getting
Hmm.
ready for the spirit to leave and separate from the body. And
Hmm.
that separation, which is a very martial thing, if we go back to
Hmm.
Mars, is the planet
Right.
that separates. That's painful, right?
Right.
There, even on a figurative, metaphoric level, like that process of transformation through death
Hmm.
or of composting, right? Going
Hmm.
back to the ground requires a willingness, participation, or the experience of being separated from
Hmm.
something. That's where the
Right.
change comes, right? And
Right.
that is painful or at the very least
Hmm.
not comfortable, right?
Right.
So there is that definite energy of Scorpio where things are not comfortable. And so
Right.
we see that in the death card ruling
Hmm.
over this sign. And then in the decans themselves,
Hmm.
we
Yeah.
have, so we see the first decan of Scorpio is Mars ruled with the Five of Cups, where
Hmm.
there is that emotional, we see that discomfort, right? We see that
Yeah.
severance with Mars coming in, where there is clearly two things here. And we're
Hmm.
grieving the thing that we are being separated from before
Right.
we turn towards the thing that is coming in and meant for us,
Hmm.
right? So all of those things that we just talked about, you can really see in this card.
Hmm.
The sun in Scorpio, this one was always like a little bit perplexing to me because
Hmm.
this is a card of, children giving each other gifts of flowers, but it is this pure emotional exchange on
Hmm.
a very deep and profound level between two beings. I also
Hmm.
like the interpretation of this card that deals with like communicating with the deceased. Have you heard
Mm.
that? What do you think about that with Six of Cups?
I've heard a lot of people like Nancy Hendrickson, she wrote Ancestral Tarot. She uses the Six of Cups as the ancestor card. And
And
yeah, it's because, and then in Pocket of Peers, Rana George is my Six of Cups, and she's communing with a younger version of herself in that card. So it's like breaching the veil or going back to the parts of us that maybe we are talking to now. Like, hey, it's like the inner child or the ancestors, or like there's a deep emotional connection and being able to say, like, look at how far I've come, or don't worry, you're going to come this far type of thing. Like, I think it's
and a
Mhm.
healing
And the
that
healing
comes
comes with that. Yeah.
from that, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that there is um that deep communication, connection,
Hmm.
relationship experience of
Hmm.
being able to connect with either another person, our own inner child, someone who's passed, our ancestors. We see all of that through this the energy of this card and the way
Hmm.
that Austin Coppock describes it, who is, I would say, my main teacher when it comes to anything having to do with the decans. He wrote 36
Hmm.
Faces, which has been out of print, but he's rewriting it now. It was the basis of a lot of the work that Susie Chang did.
Hmm. 36
36
Secrets.
Secrets.
Hmm. Yep.
It was one of her references, and I did his course on the crossover between tarot and
Hmm.
astrology. And he talks about it as like where we see Scorpio with the ability to inject, right,
Hmm.
with a stinger, that
Yeah, I get that.
and or like it reminds me of a syringe, right?
Yeah.
There is this ability to inject each other with either poison or medicine.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it's like this is like two people injecting each other in mutual exchange. And when it's
Hmm.
healthy, it feels so good. It's like the peak of what can be, beautiful about that exchange between two people.
And going from that to the Seven of Cups, like with that injection reference, it's like, oh, it's euphoric. Everything is
Oh, yeah.
fancy.
Yeah, you can totally see that, right? We're like, oh, here I am, high as fuck. No,
Here.
I just see everything in all these cups.
I'm freaking out, man.
But it is because we have this is now Venus in Scorpio,
Right.
which is this,
The
Venus is
love of,
the
yeah. Hmm.
love of harmony, of
Hmm.
unifying, of
Yeah.
coming together on this deeper level. And shows like desire and imagination,
Hmm.
and visions flowing free from what's like rooted in reality. So like, yeah, that can,
Yeah.
and and when we're talking about things like death or separation from something and change and that composting, turning it into something new, there is this period where you're beyond the veil, where things are
Mhm.
not really rooted or grounded in reality,
Oh
right?
yeah. You're almost in that like we were talking about this the other day, like that lucid dream state, where being able to like, okay, I know I'm dreaming, but what messages do I need to receive from this? What feelings am I feeling? Because like I like to remind people, like, especially if they have a bad dream or if they have a weird dream, I was like, the thing that's really important is how you feel about it. Like the
Yeah,
things that are kind of going on are just your brain like figuring it out, but like how you feel, like if you woke up from a really crazy, otherwise terrible dream, but you felt fine, then it really wasn't that, like that to me, the feeling of what you bring back from the other side is what's important, right?
I totally
And that's
get
kind
that.
of that's like the Seven of Cups to me. It's kind of like a dream card. It's like a everything, like, oh, how people go into these guided, with ayahuasca or with other things like that. Like they go through these meditations to bring them closer to that barrier in order to make sense of the living part of their life.
Yes, and there is
Mhm.
this the side of this card that is
Mhm.
debauchery, right? Where it
Mhm.
could take
Mhm.
that too far. Venus
Mhm.
and Scorpio can take everything too far.
Too
It can
far.
be
Yeah.
like if people who have native Venus and Scorpio
Mhm.
placements, there can be a tendency towards such intense passion that it borders on possessiveness
Obsession.
or
Yeah.
obsession.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes, so we can see here that this kind of could go either way between
Mhm.
those two things and tips the scale sometimes to the point
It's
of
like, oh, that was the line. That's the line there. Okay.
what are lines? What are lines anyway?
Line. What
There's
a
no
line.
lines here.
I've also heard
Just steps.
the tarot is healing. I don't I don't know why my brain is like blanking on her name. I'm sorry. But on her Substack, she talks about a lot. She does a lot with like political tarot, and she uses the Seven of Cups as like the delusion card.
Totally delusion is
Like
the other word.
it's not like rooted in,
No,
reality. It's like
it's
I
not.
always hear like all that glitters is not gold when I see this card.
Yeah, it's kind of like seeing what you want
Mhm.
and not
So
really what's
then, so
there.
then how do we, I mean, I know we're getting to this point, but then how do we like we're understanding Scorpio and how like the bigger aspect of Scorpio and the scorpionic tendencies and stuff. And now we're bringing the tarot into the chart. So if you have, you're looking at your chart and you're just looking at that pie wedge of Scorpio. So like mine's right there. Are all these decans, they're always going to be in my first house in my natal chart, right?
So this is a very good question.
Hmm.
So these decans exist in everyone's chart,
Hmm.
but the energy to which, or the extent to which you are going to be working with
Feel
them
them.
and
Yeah.
feeling them is dependent on the placements of your chart.
Mhm.
First of all, you would take the significations of the first house.
Self identity, persona, outlook, major life themes, early life themes is what I have on my on
Yes.
that's part of the sheet that everybody gets with these.
Yes, yourself, your physical body, your
Mhm.
outlook in life, your major
Mhm.
life themes, periods of gestation, early life experiences, your personality, persona,
Mhm.
the perspective through which you view the world and other
Mhm.
people also view you, and the way
Mhm.
that you kind of navigate reality or the mask that you wear, dependent on
Mhm.
how you're choosing to show up in the world. So it's really you as a person and your view
Mhm.
and outlook. If you have Scorpio in the first, that means you're Scorpio rising, right? So
Mhm.
you're looking at your ascendant, which is in the third decan of
Mhm.
Scorpio, which is Seven of
Okay.
Cups, Venus
Mhm.
ruled decan, which just off the bat, you having your ascendant in a Venus ruled decan, I think we can all attest to making so much sense with your artistic, creative
Mhm.
abilities, right? And
Okay.
your natural affinity and proclivity towards aesthetics and art,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Very Venus. We can see Jamie every day just with all her cups and all of this imagination just pouring out all over the place, right? Like this makes
I'm like,
sense.
what am I going to work on today?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're just waking up. choosing
Rise and shine. Which
what to
prop?
create.
What am I picking? What needs to come off my shelf? Yeah.
And also, like, your moon is there, which when I think of the moon, I'm always going to think about it representing, well, a multitude of things, but one of the biggest ones for me is intuition. And so I see for you or anyone with like a moon in the third decan of Scorpio being someone who has a very strong connection to intuition, but the moon is in fall in Scorpio, which means it's not its most comfortable place to operate, right? Like the moon is all about fertility and growth and nurturing and mothering and like doesn't feel so great in that Scorpio environment. And there's kind of like a trap that Scorpio moons can fall into. And working with your intuition, it would make a lot of sense to me that you would do something like tarot, something that's very
Hmm.
physical in the world that you can ground this
Hmm.
into, right? As a way to
Yeah.
work with that and trust it. Do you feel like that resonates?
I do. I was laughing because, the mothering and the nurturing, and it's like, yeah. And when you're like, that's in fall, I'm like, yeah, that ain't me, but I nurture my projects. I do nurture my puppy until he drives me nuts and I want to like send him to the underworld. But like in the sense of an empress type of mother, that is not me. So it's like it's of course like when you said that immediately, I was just laughing. I was like, that's not, but I will literally spend hours on a project that I am consumed with, nurturing it, bringing it to life so I can
Exactly.
share because I want you to be transformed by the things that I create. I
Mhm.
want
So
you to trust your own intuition while using these things, but I'm learning that not everybody has that like tap in like I do. So I've been doing a little bit more educational series, which has been a lot of fun.
So the trap with Scorpio moons
Mhm.
can be to fall into more of those shadowy Scorpio tendencies where there can be emotional resentment
Mhm.
or a need to kind of control things that we feel, um,
Mhm.
a possessiveness at times, or a vengeance and envy. It's like it takes those intense feelings and can make them shadowy. That
Mhm.
then it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just part of the process. It's like, okay, I
Mhm.
have to kind of process and feel these things and recognize that
Right.
that's the trap that I can
And I'm
fall.
definitely getting better with that. Like recently that happened, you and I talked it through, and I was like, why is this renting so much space? Why am I feeling this visceral reaction to something that it doesn't matter, but it's helped me see those shadowy parts that I've just been in.
And a huge part of
Mhm.
working through that for Scorpio
Mhm.
moons is to learn to channel the intuition,
Mhm.
learn to channel that energy and emotions into something and not ruminate on it,
Right,
right?
right.
To not get obsessive and stay
Mhm.
stuck in the emotional trap. Like it's like almost like you
Mhm.
fall into a little hole and you're like,
Right,
I'm just going to spin around in here with it.
right.
And then it's like,
AKA looping, or you're like a little topsy-turvy until you like spin out.
yeah, until you're like,
Mhm.
okay, let me climb out of this. Like, let me
Yeah.
pull myself out. It's very Five of Cups. Like, okay, I have to
Mhm.
consciously turn now
Right.
towards we've ruminated on the spilled cups long enough.
Mhm.
Let's turn towards the ones that are full. But it's just a practice of working with that energy. So
Right.
when we hear things in astrology like, oh, the moon is debilitated and in fall or under
Mhm.
siege, right? All of these things that sound like awful and
Mhm.
terrifying that are just normal astrological terms, like they're just an energy that you're already acquainted with. Like
Right.
I have the moon in detriment, you have the moon in fall, and
Uh-huh.
we're both like very intuitive people, like
Mhm.
working in this field. It's not a bad thing. It's just that we navigate that energy,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And part of the way that we both do that is with intuitive tools.
Right.
Like a deck of tarot cards or
Right.
astrological chart or whatever it might be. So
Right.
it's just different ways to work with that energy. So for people watching this, you would pull your chart, see which house Scorpio is, and
Mhm.
start there. Here's my chart. So we see
Mhm.
Scorpio in the 11th house. This is
Mhm.
the house of friendships, of groups, of our hopes and dreams and things that
Hmm.
we want to rise into in the 10th, which is our like career and who we are out in the world. This is any kind of humanitarian pursuits. In modern times, we see this with the internet and connections we make through social media. It's really a house of like networking, social recognition, and support.
Hmm.
And so I'm now thinking about Scorpio through this lens of like, okay,
Right.
here's the death card in my 11th house. And
Hmm.
in my life, I have very deep, committed friendships, but very few of them. If like
Right.
I have a lot of acquaintances, but there's only a few handful of people in that inner circle. And once you're in unless
Hmm.
there's a conscious severance, because
Hmm.
if it's, if it's toxic, I will cut it out. And that happens
Literally
very,
dead to you.
and then they will be dead to me. It's
Yeah.
very,
Literally
and
dead to you.
And there are a lot of transformations that have happened with my friend groups.
Hmm.
I have navigated through different, eras and phases of social groups that then transform and change, and only those like really close friendships remain.
Hmm.
So I also have Jupiter in the first decan of Scorpio along with my midheaven. So then
Hmm.
I'm looking at the Wheel of Fortune through the Five of Cups, right?
Right.
What does that look like in my life, especially when it comes to my career and how people
Hmm.
see me out in the world, which is very, I think, very much in like a Scorpio way. My handle is the
Hmm.
Witch of Saturn. People know me as like someone who talks a lot about like deep transformation, even through teaching yoga. That's very present, right? Is like,
Hmm.
let me guide and teach you through going into those deeper parts of yourself and exploring them in a way that's like very healing. That's just something
Right.
that like who I am in the world. So we can see that there and investigate like what that looks like within this particular decan. So does that make sense as to how
Absolutely. Hmm.
you can kind of start to work with these things in a deeper way?
It would be really neat for like somebody who, if you wanted to take a journey each season, like if you wanted to span this out over the 12 signs, you could just say, through Scorpio season, I'm going to take a little deeper look at my first house and you would be your 11th house and the the cards and the planets that show up. And then maybe if I was really curious, I would look up to, what the asteroids were. I mean, we give you those in your chart, but we don't really touch on them, but they're there. So if you want to go deeper because it's Scorpio season and that's kind of what, you're being invited to do, you can. So it's like instead of learning it all at once, it's like nice to be able to just digest this little bit and then on your own pace. And I mean, maybe you don't do it through the whole season, but you could go for a week or whatever. But like for the Scorpio season, like how we started out, you could look into the atmosphere, like see the trees dying and the limbs, and just really immerse yourself in it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a great way to be not only learn astrology, but be really
Mhm.
in tune with nature. Because the other thing to remember is that it's Scorpio season because that's where the sun is right now. Right
Right.
now, the sun is at, I think, 7 degrees of
Hmm.
Scorpio. So the sun is in the first decan. So what I do is I
Hmm.
keep these cards on my desk, like altar space. And so right now, Five of Cups is out because we're in this decan. The sun is
Hmm.
shining a light on this decan of the
Hmm.
astrological wheel until it hits 10 degrees, and then we'll switch to the Six
The
of
Six of
Cups.
Cups. Well,
So,
it's kind of neat too, because you could even see how it plays out in your own life, and then you could even look at it through the scope of how you are experiencing the world as well. Is there
yeah,
more, up to this point in Scorpio season, were we dealing with more grief that we're looking at ruminating on all the things that have been lost? And, so it's kind of like it really shows you how it is so intertwined. And if you give it the chance to learn it, you're like, oh, yeah, it's always there.
yeah, and you can see it, and that's
Hmm.
it's energy. It's
Yeah.
everywhere around us, personally, collectively.
Hmm.
And then you can also take it to this deeper level and start to investigate your chart through
Hmm.
the decans, through the seasons, and then you do that through the lens of tarot. Like it's just a very cool way to play, really.
Hmm.
So there
Yep.
were a couple of questions.
Questions.
Yeah,
Yep.
Valerie had submitted some questions to me just this morning. It was like perfect
Hmm.
timing since we were already doing this video. And she was wondering how to apply the planets in the signs according to the actual degrees or the decan ranges. And this is a very good question and one
Hmm.
that can get confusing, right? Because like she had said that she has Saturn in Leo at 14 degrees, which is in
Hmm.
this second Jupiter ruled decan.
Hmm.
So 6 of Wands,
Hmm.
right, is the decan here. But there is a Saturn ruled decan just before that in Five of
Hmm.
Wands. And so it can get confusing because you have Saturn in Leo and there's a Saturn in Leo decan, but you're looking
Right.
at your chart. So if you have a planet at 14 degrees of Leo, like here's 15 degrees where my vertex is, this
Hmm.
is the decan that it's in. So you're looking at it through
Right.
that lens. You
Hmm.
can also look at what does Saturn in Leo mean in this other decan to understand Saturn in that sign, right? Or
Hmm.
to understand that card through the lens
Hmm.
of astrology. But with your chart, you want to look at the placement of that planet. 24 degrees
Hmm.
of Pluto, here it is in the third decan of, Libra 3.
Hmm.
Jupiter at 3 degrees of Scorpio is Scorpio 1, right? So you're looking at it that way for your particular placement, not
Right.
necessarily
What
then
the decan
saying,
is or what, yeah. It's
saying,
almost,
oh,
it makes me
you're in
think
Scorpio.
about, it makes me think about how people are like, oh, I was born on the cusp, so I don't know, I could be this or that. And it's like, no, you're this or that. Like it
Yes,
depends on the
the degree.
timing. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
you're looking
degree. Hmm.
the specific degree. The other
Hmm.
thing that she asked about was correspondences with the outer planets
Hmm.
and the tarot arcana. And here's the thing is that there are, just like there are different house systems in astrology,
Hmm.
there are different decanic systems, and there are some that include the modern planets, which are the outer planets of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto.
Hmm.
This is an ancient study. This
Hmm.
decanic study originates back to, like we were saying, ancient Babylonian times or ancient Greece, the
Hmm.
Middle East. These are all studies that have their roots in traditional astrology. And so then we use the traditional planets, which ends
Hmm.
at Saturn, which is the last planet that's visible to the human eye. So the
Hmm.
modern planets, I don't use them as decan rulers. You can
Hmm.
certainly investigate that and kind of contrast and compare your chart. I always think it's interesting to do that. I even do that with house systems. I read in whole sign houses, but I like to look at a Placidus chart to see what's
Hmm.
shifting and changing and how that could maybe be experienced in a different way. Um,
Right.
but you could still, so that's for the decans and the
Hmm.
modern planets. It's the collective planets that are more transpersonal. You can still look at them through this lens in your chart. So you could take Uranus,
Right.
which is,
Hmm.
for you, Uranus is in the first house. So you've got to pull out the
Right.
pool and see what it looks like in the death card.
Right.
And like, oh, let's just leap into transformation, you know?
I mean, it's
And
very me. I got it. It tracks. I'm like, I only got $200. I'm gonna restart my whole life.
yeah.
Let's do
Gee,
it.
love
That's
it.
exactly what I did back in 2002.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could go through and
Yeah.
track the transits and see,
Yeah.
why that was activating. But so you could pull the Fool for Uranus, the Hanged One for Neptune, Judgment for Pluto, and take a look at those cards and those planets in the decans that they show up in your chart. But understand that those do have more of a collective
Hmm.
interpretation because, every Pluto is the planet of generations. And this is a hill I will die on,
I
that
love it. I
Pluto
love
is
this
what
hill.
I get so mad. Pluto sets the generations, right?
Hmm.
Like there's a whole group of people who think that they are Gen X and they are not because Gen
No.
X is Pluto. Pluto Gen X is Pluto in Virgo. So boomers are Pluto in Leo, which we know all too well.
Hmm.
Gen X is Pluto in Virgo. And then there's this exennial Pluto
Yeah.
in Libra that we just
Oh,
all
that's
kind
odd.
of like get
Yeah.
skipped right over. And then there's the millennials, which
Hmm.
are Pluto in Scorpio. So
Hmm.
that's a generational planet because it's the slowest moving. And then Neptune and Uranus are also hanging out in a sign for so long that the planet in the sign is not going to give you a whole lot of information about you personally. It's going to give you a lot of information about your generation.
Like your
And
peers and your,
collectively,
yeah. Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you're going to want to pay more attention to the outer planets in the houses because having Uranus in the first house is
Hmm.
how you're going to experience that energy in your life. Me having
Right.
Uranus in the 12th house is going to show up differently than you with Uranus in the first. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how you want to start to look at your chart and understand those
I
outer
like to I
influences.
like to look at it as like if we had a room, right? If this was, say we're at the house of the devil because that's your first house or whatever, or we'll go with the death card because it's Scorpio. So we're at the house of Scorpio. So we're at the death card's house, right? Who's showing up? You have the decans. So you have the 5, 6, and 7 of cups, and then it's almost like a party. So then in your case, you have the Wheel of Fortune showing up.
Yeah.
And they're gonna like what conversations, I always think about like what conversations would they have? So if you also had like Neptune in there, the hanged one would be in there too. Like it would be a vastly different conversation than say the Empress showing up.
Yes.
That's how I like to view it and look at it and kind of just play and see like what conversations are being had in my own personal houses.
Yeah, it goes back to like the stages, right?
Hmm.
If we're in
Yeah.
the house of the death card, if the stage
Hmm.
is set where we're like in that particular death
So
card,
is it a costume party? Are we like it's Halloween, so are we all dressed up? Like,
yeah, and who's like comfortable hanging out here and who
right.
feels like the odd man out? That's like kind of
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, get these people are nuts. Like there's those
Like the
energies.
death part, the death house is like going and like what our friend Stephanie does, and she goes and travels and stays at actual haunted places, and then she gets like concerned that she gets haunted. And I was like, well, you stayed in a haunted house. What are you thinking? So the death card might be a haunted house. And are you
Oh
willing
God.
to stay there for a long time or are you just passing through?
So hopefully this will give a little bit more context. And our plan is now to every season kind of go through the different signs and the decans and at least our charts to see kind of
Hmm.
who's showing up to these different parties that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see like what Sagittarius season has for us.
It ain't going to be good for me. This 12th house action, it's like a little, it's
My
intense.
to my second, so
Yeah. So we'll be talking about your money in my subconscious dream
yeah,
world.
great. Sounds so fun.
Just thank you everyone for watching. If you got this far, if you liked this, please like and subscribe to our channels. Take a minute to comment. If you have questions, please
Yeah.
send them in. We'll address them in the next video. If there's something even specific that you want to know about your chart and you would like us to use it as an example, we can do that as well. All right.
Yep, that would
And
be
to
fun.
find Jamie and all of the amazing creative Seven of Cups things that she's doing, you can go to her website, jamiesawyer336.com. Also, you're on Patreon, Instagram,
Mhm.
Facebook too. Not so
I'm
much.
less active on I have a Facebook, but I always forget I have a Facebook. It's one of the cups I don't tend. It's
Yeah.
it's just a dusty cup. It's a dusty one on the shelf. It's mostly Instagram and YouTube lately. I just finished my October series, and then Patreon is where you get like the sneak peeks if you're a member. And I've been sharing at least one public post a week. But yeah, so that's more where you can find me and my newsletter, but
Yeah. So sign
Instagram
up
and
for that.
YouTube. Yeah.
For me, you can
And
find
yeah.
me on my website, which is erinlento.com. I'm also on YouTube and Instagram as the Witch of Saturn and try to be pretty active on those two channels. So great. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of spooky Scorpio season. Happy Samhain and happy Halloween.
Bye.